Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll have that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday once again, everyone. What's going on? Welcome to your Winged Eagle Podcast for March 12th, 2022. We've got kind of a bittersweet episode to get into today. I think the meat and potatoes of this episode is really just going to be wishing the best to Big E, who, of course, suffered a broken neck last night on SmackDown. He has provided 2 medical updates since then, and that's what we're going to be starting the podcast today with in just a second once I get through all the pleasantries. Also, on addition, for today, we've got a watch-along I need to tell you guys about tomorrow. We're going to preview this week's Raw and SmackDown, which Raw and Dynamite, which both look pretty good. We're going to talk about the ratings for this week. We're going to talk about Dolph Ziggler winning the NXT title. A fantastic Dynamite after a pay-per-view last Wednesday with a heel turn, title change, and debut. Last night's SmackDown, aside from the Big E news, really not much going on other than a Charlotte and a Ronda brawl to close the show, which was nothing at all even close as good as the big brawl that the three of them, Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte, had like 3 years ago on Raw. And WWE is at it again with their latest ridiculous name change with Pete Dunne. This one is just too head-scratching to even talk about at the moment, so we'll get into that as well. We'll talk about this week's Dynamite, big show on tap for Wednesday. We're going to talk about last night's Rampage, last night's SmackDown. We're going to talk about the WrestleMania card, the latest with Cody Rhodes, talk about Jeff Hardy signing with AEW, and basically anything else that went on this week that you guys want to discuss. We are going to do that, and of course, a lot of WrestleMania previewing and speculation going down as well. So that's kind of what's on tap for today. I was even debating doing a podcast today, but after what happened to Big E last night, figured we needed to come up here and do some chatting. And then this week we'll play everything by ear. May or may not be up here for Raw, but I'll definitely be up here this coming Wednesday for our Dynamite watch along as well. So I'm going to say hello to everybody in the chat, get all the shout outs out of the way, answer the super chats, say hello to the subscribers on Patreon, and then we will get in to the business here. Hopefully you guys are having a great weekend so far on this lovely Saturday. Doing a sound check on myself there. We look good. I want to welcome Sam and Tatanani and Red Raven Rucker. We got Nick Musser in the house. Nice to see you. Starting a new job on Monday. A little nervous about it. That can be nervous. Best of luck to you, man. I've been at my jobs for many, many years at a time, so starting a new job can be really nervous, especially if you're at your previous place for a long time. So whatever's going on with you on Monday, dude, we are thinking about you. Good luck, and let us know how it goes. George Morris is here as well, along with Chaz. George dropped in with $5 to say, hey, Greg, how are you doing, and how is Bub? Some guy trying to scam cashier at Dollar General held up the line for 45 minutes, and what about WrestleMania 3 watch-along? You sat in a dollar store line for 45 minutes? What the hell's wrong with you, man? Just steal it or just come back another day and get it. I would have already left after just 5 minutes of sitting through that shit. WrestleMania 3 watch along we may do. We have our watch along set for tomorrow, WrestleMania 21. So if you want to join us, the link to that is in the description below right now. And you can also visit the my homepage there on YouTube, and you will see it tomorrow night, WrestleMania 21, like a three-week absence, I think it was, between maybe even 4 of these classic pay-per-view watch-alongs that I was planning to do every Sunday, but in the month of February, I was dealing with a very sick pet, and it kind of messed everything up. So we were back at it tomorrow, WrestleMania 21. It's been requested a lot. We've talked about it on previous streams, in terms of what WrestleManias we should do in the future, and WrestleMania 21 always comes up. It's a great show. Shawn and Angle, come on. Undertaker and Randy Orton, they launch Cena and Batista. Neither one of those matches were really my favorite on the card, but just the strength of the Shawn and Angle match, Taker and Orton, was very good. Ray and Eddie tore the house down. The first ever Money in the Bank. You had Austin and Piper, and there was a lot of good stuff on that show. So I think that will be a really fun one to do tomorrow. So join us at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, and we will watch WrestleMania 21 on a Sunday night together. That's the plan. WrestleMania 3, however, definitely could be doing that soon. Bub is still doing fantastic. 3 weeks ago yesterday, I was basically told that I should feel comfortable making the call to put him down at any time, whenever I'm emotionally ready. In the meantime, let's pump him full of antibiotics and steroids and more medicine. Next thing you know, he made an unbelievable turnaround. He went from not being able to walk or even eat to not only walking but running, not only eating but being hungry. He's put weight back on. He had some sores on his leg from the fungus infection that have now healed. He's jumping. He's playing. It's unbelievable, almost to the point where it's giving me false hope. Now, he is apparently not going to get better for very long. This is probably just a temporary thing. He's comfortable. He's happy. He's back to normal. But in the end, this stuff is probably going to get him. Either way, I'm really grateful for the extra time with him. So I was already expecting him to not be with me anymore. So the fact that he's not only here, but he's getting stronger every day is great. So I'm realistic, though. It's not going to last. He will eventually make a turn for the worse. But right now, to have him back to normal is a pretty good feeling. Very happy about how all that's going. Thank you for that, George. Rodrigo is here as well. Big J, Ben Forbes, Andy Linnell, and C-Mac with the $2. What's up, dude? So happy you are here. Brandon Blair, David Brown in the house. Really happy to see you here as well. Beetle 911, Yachiro, Sonic, Kevin, JL, Lambo, Shell Shock, Miles, Mr. All Days Off, Atomic Cody, right on. I'm glad you guys are here this afternoon. Please click that thumbs up button. Smash that thumbs up button if you don't mind, and please subscribe if you are not a subscriber already. Also, go over to Twitter, shoot me a follow. I dipped below 5,000 followers like nearly a year ago, and I'm just about back up there to crack that 5,000 mark. So if you're not a follower on Twitter, go over there, follow me at Good Mic Work. That would be fantastic. And to all of you that subscribe to the channel and support the channel on Patreon, I would like to thank all of you as well, starting with Divine Ricks and MJ Parker, JJ Legg, Darren Piper, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, J Smooth 99, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast, good dudes over there, Alan Carter, Nick Musser, Jimmy Anderson, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, John Redifer, Claudio Klabadetcher, Reese Jones, Barry MK400. By the way, Reese Jones is sponsoring a WrestleMania-themed video that's just about ready. I'm going to finish the recording and editing this week, and it's going to be an entire podcast on WrestleMania matches where the other guy should have won, or the wrong person's man or woman won. And boy, we've got quite the list to go through. And I'm sure some of you can think of a lot of matches off the top of your head that you would have preferred to see go differently on the grandest of them all, many, many different years. So that's going to be a fun podcast to do, and that should be up soon. So keep a lookout for that. Josiah Blevins, good to see you, or thank you again for your Patreon supportage as well. John Riff, yes, supportage is a word. John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, and Blake Moran. Thanks again, guys, for all of your support. Appreciate it. You really keep the ball rolling here on the channel in terms of, what it costs to run it. So appreciate that. Like I said, WrestleMania 21, watch along tomorrow, so join us for that. Daylight savings time is tonight. Just a little quick reminder. Now, back in the day, you'd have to remember to set your clocks and change everything, but nowadays, everything pretty much does it for you. But you're going to lose an hour of sleep tonight, which sucks. We're going to spring ahead. So I've got a bunch of staff members working brunch tomorrow morning. They have to be here at 8 a.m. or be there at 8 a.m. So a lot of them lose an hour of sleep on top of that. So they go out drinking tonight. They are going to be feeling like shit tomorrow. So don't forget that you're going to kind of lose an hour tonight. So plan accordingly. Daylight savings sucks. Actually, I think we're springing ahead to where we're changing it now. I think fall back. I think we're on the proper time now. We're on standard time now, and then we're going to spring ahead for summer hours. I don't know how it works. All I know is it usually sucks, and you're going to lose an hour of sleep tonight. Also, if you guys have any plans to go to Double or Nothing in May in Las Vegas, I have gotten my tickets, and I'll be there. I've got great fucking seats for the show. I'm very excited to go. We'll be there, I guess, all weekend. So I guess the plan now is Saturday before Double or Nothing. Anybody who's in the area, we're going to try to do a fan meetup, meet and greet. I might even hook up with some other YouTubers. Not quite sure any of those details yet. That stuff will probably be hammered out once we get on the other side of WrestleMania. But Saturday for sure is probably going to be a good day to do any sort of meetup if any of you are planning to go to Double or Nothing. If not, come see me at the show. I'll be around the arena. I'll be at my seat, all that stuff. So if you want to get together or meet up at Double or Nothing, you can DM me on Twitter, anything like that in the next few weeks, and we'll try to set something up because I already know there's a handful of people that I am going to be hanging out with on that weekend, and hey, the more the merrier. So that should be fun. Try to get your asses to Vegas, and let's hang out. And then next year for WrestleMania, we'll be here in LA, and I will definitely be there, but I will not be making it to Dallas, unfortunately, for that. One more super chat to knock out before we get into it here from Spaz Phoenix. Go check out Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel. He's got great stuff over there. Thank you very much for the $10, dude. Coming off Revolution, Sacrifice, and Roadblock, we got Mania 1 and 2, Stand and Deliver, Rebellion, and Impact's multiverse of matches to look forward to. Hope you and the chat, the chat and the kitty are well. We are all doing well. At least I think most of you are. Y'all seem to be doing well in the chat. Jamie Edwards is here as well. So is Robert Johnson. C-Mac with $2 more. Thank you for that, dude. Got my tickets for the 5-4 Dynamite in Baltimore. Oh, that's awesome. I still have to get my tickets for the Dynamite after Double or Nothing in LA at the Forum. I'll pick those up this week. I think they went on sale yesterday, but I didn't bother with that. I'll probably just StubHub them or something so I can kind of pick where I want to be. That's what I did for Double or Nothing. By the way, I have 2 extra tickets for Double or Nothing, $90 each. If you're interested in them, they are on the upper deck. They're next to each other. I don't have the exact section, but I bought 2 tickets on the day that they went on sale, and those were the best seats I could get. And I didn't really love them, so I went and bought 2 other tickets to enjoy the show a little bit closer up, which means I do have 2 tickets for Double or Nothing for sale. If anybody wants them, shoot me a DM on Twitter. We'll work something out. They're just letting you know they're available. Otherwise, as we get closer to the show, I'm sure I will be able to unload them to someone. So that's great, man. I'm looking forward to finally getting to some AEW shows. I've only been to one, and that was on the Jericho Cruise. So to actually attend a Dynamite and a pay-per-view, it's going to be pretty awesome. I am ready for that. Anyway, let's get into wrestling news first. I think we have to start with the biggest news of the week, and that is last night on SmackDown, Big E suffered an injury. Turns out it was a broken neck. This was a match with Kofi and Big E taking on Ridge Holland and Sheamus. Sheamus on the outside of Ridge goes to hit Big E on the outside of the ring with a belly-to-belly, and I only watched the bump once, and that's all I need to see of it. I don't want to watch it again. I sure as shit don't want it on my timeline, and it was just real ugly. Big E landed right on his head, and even the way he landed, he kind of immediately moved, so it wasn't like instant paralysis or anything, but you could tell that it was gnarly, and it was a scary bump, and the match would continue while the medical personnel were working on Big E, and I think they even went to the finish of the match and everything, which was Ridge and Sheamus getting the win after a bro kick, I believe, to Kofi, and during the commercial break, Big E was stretchered out. There was a lot of fan footage from this happening, Big E giving the thumbs up to everybody, appearing to be able to be okay, at least in terms of movement and stuff like that. And I'd say, maybe 2 to 3 hours? I think SmackDown had literally just wrapped up, and he had already provided the fans, us, everybody, with a medical update right from his hospital bed on his phone. And he said, I'm good. He goes, I can move all of my digits, and the doctors have told me that I have a broken neck, but don't worry about him. He's going to handle it. There's no paralysis, and he can move around. But obviously, with a broken neck, that's a huge deal and very uncertain in terms of his future, but let us know that, hey, it could have been a lot worse, and the fact that he can move his limbs, his extremities, his digits, like he said, is just hugely wonderful news. So that update alone provided, I think, a lot of reassurance, maybe even comfort to a degree for a lot of fans, and especially a lot of his peers. If you're ever sick of the negativity in the wrestling community, if you're ever depressed, if you're just, wondering why everybody in the world has to be the douchebags that they are, go to Big E's video and read all of the comments and the well wishes from all of the wrestlers and all of his peers in any promotion across the world. I have never seen an outpouring of love quite like what I saw with Big E. You absolutely love to see that because he has got one of the best reputations in the business. There's not a single human soul walking this planet that doesn't absolutely adore him. He's like the modern day Bobby Eaton. He's just a guy that you don't hear a negative word about, which I think a lot of this, which makes it even harder when something like, injuries suck no matter what, no matter who it happens to. But when it happens to somebody that's so ridiculous, but ridiculously beloved, such a good pro wrestler, such a great personality, such a great positive vibe. He is an absolute pro in every sense of the word. And not only does he suffer an injury that could be career-threatening, he also is missing out on WrestleMania, which is just a month away. And you just feel so badly for him that happened. But just based on that first video that, he recorded just 2-3 hours after he got injured, he's like, it's all good. Don't worry about old me. Go to sleep. I'm going to be fine. Look, my fingers are moving. It's all good. And, when you see everybody, AEW, WWE, New Japan, Impact, Ring of Honor, everybody in the wrestling world showing him love, showing him support, wishing him well to get back on his feet as soon as possible, that's the kind of stuff that you like to see because he is just a tremendous human being, and we all wish him the best here in the channel. I know you guys on the chat as well. We all love Big E. We were all thrilled that they finally not only gave him the Money in the Bank briefcase, but also belted him this year. Arguably, as WWE tends to do with everything, they dropped the ball with him, putting the title to Brock so they can do title for title, or unification at WrestleMania, and kind of cast Big E aside where he hasn't been doing that much, even quietly moving him to SmackDown to re-team up with Kofi Kingston, and a lot of that was frustrating to a lot of fans. But Big E still did it with a smile, went out there and worked his hardest every single night. And that's the type of reputation as a pro wrestler I think I would aspire to have if I was a young pro wrestler, or if I was a new wrestler or looking to get into business. My goal wouldn't be to win as many championships and main events as many WrestleManias as possible. My goal would be to be as respected by my peers as Big E is by his. And really, really liked to see how much love was coming his way. Because, you know, when you think about this stupid war, like I call it, this war that the fans have gotten themselves in, where there's just so much hate and negativity and people being douchebags at each other for no reason. You don't see this stuff with the wrestlers. You know, sure, wrestlers can have problems with the companies they work for. I'm sure you guys can relate. I'm sure you have jobs where you think the company is run by a bunch of idiots, you know, but in terms of your colleagues, your peers, the people you work with, see every day that are your family, your brothers, your sisters who you travel with, they're all a group. They're all supportive of one another, and they're a family regardless of which company they work for. And we see that just in every day. How many couples are spread across WWE? How many married couples are in both companies? One spouse is in WWE and the other one's in AEW. Boyfriends, girlfriends, best friends. Amanda Huber, you know, poor thing, had to watch that last night. Big E is her, you know, I think -1's favorite wrestler. He was Brody Lee's best friend and really close to the family. And she has to watch him go through that and just sit there and wait and grit your teeth and wait for an update. All of his friends, family, fans, you know, that had to sit there and just wait for that update. And he was so quick to give it to us and remain positive as only he can do. So Big E, I expect him with this broken neck to handle it the way he handles everything, with style, grace, and an unimaginable amount of positivity, because that's who Big E is. So Big E, we love you. We wish you the best. And man, just really, really hoping for a speedy recovery. And we may have gotten some insight on that, because today, this morning, Big E from his hospital room provided another medical update number 2 this time. And he tells us that he has some really, really, I mean, all things considered, he's got a broken neck, but this is really good news. He says the C1 and C6 vertebrae are fractured but not displaced, which is great. Also, there is no spinal cord damage, and that means no surgery. So the fact that there wasn't any displacement or spinal cord stuff going on is going to basically have him avoid surgery, which is great. So I'm assuming this is just a healing type of deal, like any bone would heal. I thought they would still have to go in and do plates or fuse something or whatever, but it sounds like he can just heal from this with some time and allowing the bones and everything to grow back. I'm not a doctor, but it just sounds like it's basically a matter of just rehabbing and letting it heal, which is great. He didn't give a timetable on any sort of return, because when you're dealing with a neck, it's not a guarantee you're going to come back at all. So they probably want to be cautious in terms of laying out timelines, you know, one night after he suffered a broken neck. But when you think about no spinal cord damage, no displacement, and no surgery, you know, that makes you think that it's likely we could be talking about less than a year for Big E, and that'll be quite the return when and if he does come back. But I'm sure, first things first, the doctors have to make sure that this is the type of injury you can make a full recovery from. He didn't really say that in his video, but he implied that things are going to be all right, and he seemed in amazing spirits. So really happy to hear that update from Big E, that he's not going to require surgery. And he even kind of joked, he goes, hey, if you got to break your neck, do it in Birmingham, you know, because Birmingham's where everybody goes for their orthopedic stuff. They'd go down to see Dr. Andrews. How many surgeries have been performed in that city, maybe even in that same hospital, but that's where they were last night for SmackDown. And Big E sounds like he's in really good hands down there with the medical team. So we just keep our fingers crossed, wish him the best. Obviously now this is going to drastically alter what they have planned for WrestleMania, because it looked like after the debut of Butch that they were going to go with a 6-man or some type of deal at WrestleMania, possibly even getting Xavier Woods involved against Sheamus and Ridge and Butch. We'll talk about Butch later on, but that all happened first, and that's just, really puts things into perspective. I had to work all night last night, so I was basically just getting updates from you guys, and the first update I got on Twitter was that WWE changed Pete Dunne's name to Butch, and I was like, you gotta be, I was just like, couldn't believe it. I was almost just laughing because it's such a WWE thing to do, but also this is one of the more ridiculous name changes that they've done. All the hate and the people freaking out on Twitter was going on for about 20 minutes until Big E got injured, and then it really puts things into perspective. And all of a sudden, changing Pete Dunne's name to Butch isn't that big a deal, in the grand scheme of things. It was kind of all about Big E after that, but we will be touching on SmackDown here in just a little bit, and I will talk more about Butch in just a little bit. In the meantime, though, best wishes out to Big E. Kind of sad, too, because it was just one day earlier. I think it was Thursday. He did a video with the Dude Perfect guys from YouTube, who I don't even know who they are. They've got like 55 million subscribers. How have I never really even heard? I guess maybe I've heard of them, but I'm just not really aware of them. And he did a little deal with them, filmed something with them where he tossed one guy off into a foam pit, and then he invited them to be the ones to reveal this year's WrestleMania set in Dallas. They usually do that every year where they reveal the set the night before or something. Vince has done it before. Shane and Stephanie have done it, I think. Lots of people have done it. This time, it's going to be the Dude Perfect guys. I clicked over on their YouTube channel to check them out, and they look like, because I've seen a little bit of Mark Rober, and I watched the How Ridiculous, the Australian guys. They kind of do the same thing. They create these big contraptions and do shit and drop shit from helicopters and break stuff and trick shots and all sorts of crazy stuff. And sometimes I've seen some of their videos, but really don't know who Dude Perfect even is. And it seems like they are one of the biggest YouTubers out there. And me not knowing who they are is like someone not knowing who LeBron James is. It's fucking crazy. But anyway, they're going to be the ones to do that. And that was a whole funny little segment there. Big E, just as charismatic and fun-loving as always. And just one day later, he would suffer that injury. So we just keep Big E in our thoughts, that is for sure. The other big news of the week that I want to touch on now before we move on to AEW stuff later is that Jeff Hardy did in fact debut for AEW this past Wednesday. Dynamite fell on the same day, I believe, that his no-compete ended with WWE after those morons let him go and released him or fired him. And I think they were literally regretting that 1 hour after they did it, trying to get him back, trying to offer him, dangle a Hall of Fame induction in front of his face to get him to not go to AEW. But why didn't they think of this before they released him? Why didn't they just gather all the info first? I think it's because it was Jeff Hardy that they had that knee-jerk reaction to let him go, but it was like instant remorse or instant regret, I should say, because then I think it was like, oh, light bulb, he's going to go over to AEW. We don't own that song. We don't own that song, guys. This could suck for us. And sure enough, he showed up on Wednesday night. That was awesome. They got the music, which is what we were all hoping. We said that from the minute Jeff Hardy was released, is that I'm surprised they were never able to use it somewhere else, because we've always known that WWE does not own the Hardy Boys music. And I thought that has actually been discussed enough over the past couple of weeks and months where the fans shouldn't be that shocked. I was surprised how many people were like, holy shit, they got the song. How did they get the song? And then, of course, everybody wants to educate everybody. Oh, WWE doesn't own the song. They do. Yeah, we know all of this. But I just thought that more people did, I guess. So Fightful Select released an article earlier in the day on Wednesday saying that AEW was working out the details to try to license the song or get the rights to use the song. And they were able to pull it off. And he was able to come out on Dynamite to that music, which, to me, I just think is just really cool. I mean, we haven't seen that very many times. I'm obsessed with stuff like this. You guys hear me talking about it all the time on live streams and watch-alongs and stuff like that. The theme music stuff, I think it's always very cool whenever theme music is transferred from one promotion to the other, because it's never done. And we've thrown out lots and lots of examples throughout the years, but there is literally no proper examples where the exact song, intact, moved from one promotion to the other. I think the closest we ever came was maybe in 94 when Randy Savage went to WCW, but that was not the same song. That was just a different version of Pomp and Circumstance, not the same one. And then until we got to, more modern times where real music is being used that can be licensed and paid for, like Cult of Personality for CM Punk, Jim Ross bringing over the Oklahoma theme song for him, and now Jeff Hardy coming in with his. This is great. You like to see this stuff because you never got to see this back in the day. You know, imagine if Hulk Hogan showed up in WCW and got to come out to Real American. They had to create their own Real American, which arguably wasn't as good. You know, and a lot of talent is like that when you can't take the exact music. But, you know, once companies get purchased by one another, you know, WWE buying WCW, then it changes. NWO and, you know, and Ric Flair and lots of Goldberg and guys like that can come in and use their same music. But in terms of two companies that are not under the same umbrella doing this, it's rare. So now it's happened basically 2 or 3 times now in AEW alone, and I think the only chance WWE has got to get some revenge is if they bring Cody in, because apparently he owns the rights to his song. So they could do it right now with Cody, or in a couple of years, they could maybe lure MJF away from AEW, and I'm pretty sure MJF, unless AEW has made steps or taken steps in the last year to secure or purchase the rights to the song and own it permanently, MJF is apparently royalty-free music on YouTube's library, so WWE could always do the same thing and get a little bit of revenge. So it's kind of cool that they've got in AEW Jeff Hardy there with the Hardy Boys music, especially if we see Cody come in with Cody's music. That's going to really feel, in my mind, Forbidden Door-ish, because even back in the day with WCW, WWE, and ECW, trading talent and guys moving all over, you were never seeing songs come over with them. A lot of the characters were not remaining intact because Vince didn't like to do that. He wasn't going to bring in Cactus Jack as Cactus Jack. He put a mask on him and called him Mankind. Luckily, it just like Mark Calloway given the Undertaker gimmick, it really, really worked out. But a lot of times it isn't. They're not that lucky. So seeing Hardy there with kind of the WWE theme music vibe is just, for a fan like me, is cool because I just like this type of stuff. I don't know why more fans do. I saw more fans taking issue with the song than anything else. I'm like, does nobody else find this fun other than me? Is the wrestling community that fucking miserable where they don't think this is a cool thing? I don't know. But Jeff Hardy is there now. And of course, they did the segment on Wednesday where Matt Hardy was voted out of the Andrade Hardy family office. It's just the Andrade family office now, I believe. Hardy was voted out. I guess they ran that angle so he could reunite with Jeff as a tag team, as the original Hardy Boys from 20 years ago, so they can have a lot of great matches now with the Bucks and FTR and all sorts of guys, provided, you know, health provided. And Matt Hardy also updated the fans and let people know that AEW has extended his contract to now match up with Jeff Hardy's, which is really cool. So now they're on the same contract deal. They can take outside bookings. They can make appearances. They might even be able to wrestle under their contract and their current deals with AEW, and they're going to expire at the same time, which is good, especially if they want to continue to do Hardy Boys stuff as much as possible. I think it's fantastic. So I think they're probably going to have a little bit of a run here as a tag team. I think eventually Jeff Hardy might want to have a singles program of some kind. There's another guy in AEW that makes this whole situation very interesting, and that is CM Punk, because I was under the impression that Hardy and Punk were not on the best of terms after their feud in 2009, which was a fantastic feud for the World Heavyweight title that led to Jeff Hardy's WWE departure. Literally, like 1 week after he left the company, he had his house raided, and he got in all that trouble with drugs. And then I believe his house even burned down, and his dog passed away. He was in a rough spot. Then he went to TNA, hung out there for a year before doing the deal at Victory Road. It was Victory Road, right, where he came out all fucked up. And that's also really interesting when you think about what happened on Wednesday, because who was in the ring when Jeff Hardy came down to save everybody? By the way, he had to do the dance first before he went in there and helped his brother, who was getting his ass kicked. But Sting was in the ring. Kind of interesting. You know, you got to wonder if Sting's like, all right, dude, none of that shit this time. I think Jeff Hardy and Sting, was Hardy there when Sting was in like 2015? No, I guess he wouldn't have been. I'm sure Hardy and Sting have seen each other in WWE circles, but hell, the Hardys didn't come back till 2017. And I think Sting was still kind of in the company at that time, but not really on TV much. So I don't know how many times they've actually interacted or seen each other since that TNA pay-per-view when Jeff did what he did. But just Jeff being in the ring with Sting was crazy. It was a crazy visual. 10 years after 11 years. Is that how long it's been now? Since the deal happened. So that's kind of interesting. A potential possible feud with CM Punk down the road could be interesting as well. CM Punk kind of mentioned Jeff Hardy in one of his promos leading up to the MJF match, right? Mentioned what he did. Maybe didn't mention Jeff Hardy by name, but talked about some of the issues they tackled in their angle with each other. So not sure what CM Punk's relationship is with Jeff Hardy or Colt Cabana still to this day. CM Punk's been back now for several months, and I haven't heard a thing about what's going on with him and Colt Cabana, if they just stay out of each other's way or if they're just cordial, if they ever interact, if they ever spoken to each other, do they sit next to each other in catering? Do they agree to be cordial, but we're never going to be friends again? What's the deal there? I would really kind of like to know. I like that type of gossip. But Jeff Hardy being in AEW now, I think is very cool. And him and Matt Hardy can have a small little run there. I guess maybe their contracts are 2 or 3 years, something like that. I have no idea the details on them, but I still think that both guys will wind up in the WWE Hall of Fame one day. I have no doubt at all. And it's kind of cool that their contracts are up together because they could maybe jump back to WWE and get their induction. I think Matt Hardy is a guy that can be an agent or producer or have a job in wrestling if he so chooses. In any promotion, I think he'd be a great asset to AEW or WWE if he chooses to go back there. So I'm kind of just happy to see, considering at one time both of these guys were about as rock bottom as you can get. Both of them at different times in their life, hitting absolute rock bottom to the point where it's really a miracle they're even alive. And not only are they alive, they're both here. They both seem to be in a good place. They both seem to have a handle on, their demons, which you don't really ever get rid of, but they seem to have it all in check. They've got families, and they are still commanding money in 2022 after all the years they've put in. So they are still very loved by the fans, very marketable, very recognizable, and they're lucky to be pushing, mid-40s and late 40s and still being able to generate this kind of response and buzz and money from pro wrestling. They should be proud. The only other piece of news I want to get into, because we were kind of light on the news, like I said, up until the Big E injury, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be up here today. So I want to talk about one more thing first before we start talking about this week's shows. I want to touch a little bit on this past week's Raw, preview this week's Raw, and do the same thing with Dynamite, and talk Dolph winning the NXT title, because that is pretty cool. Good to see Angie and Zane, my homies, in here. Happy you guys are here as well. Brian Powers, what's up? Yeah, Brian, there were so many interesting WCW themes we've talked about, but, even with Jericho, I think it was Jericho and Raven and DDP all had like Pearl Jam and Nirvana knockoffs. I think DDP's was Smells Like Teen Spirit. Jericho's was Even Flow, was a knockoff of Even Flow, but that should have been Raven, since Raven's move was the Even Flow. Raven's, I think, was like Come As You Are by Nirvana, but like a knockoff of that. But in terms of like transferring one theme to another, the Nasty Boys was pretty close, but not exact. I think the reason the Nasty Boys was so similar is because Jimmy Hart wrote the song in both WWE and WCW, where in WCW they had lyrics, but it was still the same background beat for the most part. So there's lots of interesting little ones here and there throughout the years, but the fact that we've never really even seen a complete 100% intact song transfer from one promotion to another, the fact that we've seen it twice with Punk and Hardy just in a matter of months is just cool for a fan like me. I don't know why I like this kind of stuff. I just do. So sorry if this type of chatter bores anyone, but I like it. Divine Ricks, I got 3 super chats from you to knock out? Holy shit. Thank you, my friend. $2 first. Got my tickets for the 4/27 Dynamite in Philly. Take lots of pictures, my friend. That's going to be fun. Philly should be a fun crowd for Dynamite. Have they been there yet? Sure they have. They definitely have. And thank you for 5 more running right underneath that. I'm so excited about tomorrow. Watch along one of my favorite WrestleMania matches, Shawn and Kurt. Looking forward to it. That match is so good. It's easily my favorite match on that card. Their Vengeance match, or the match they had on pay-per-view a few months after that, was pretty good too, I believe, in 2005. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that tomorrow. It's a show because like there's so much shit going on. There's only a couple of dead spots in the show where you don't care much about. It should be a good one. And you got another one down here as well. Thank you for 5 more. Hey, Greg, what are your thoughts about Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and Adam Cole's run in AEW so far. I'm happy with all of them. Adam Cole just fought for the world title and main evented a pay-per-view, so I don't know why people think he's buried and shit. That's ridiculous. And I'm loving Danielson so far, especially now that he's with Mox and William Regal. That whole thing's very interesting. CM Punk just came off of a hell of a program with MJF, and I'm hoping is going to move on to something fun with someone else real soon. So far, very little complaints from me. I've had certain parts of like Punk's promos or, a couple of segments here or there that I didn't 100% love, but in terms of their overall run in the company, no complaints. I don't know where fans even come up with these complaints sometimes and how their brains are even programmed to think this way. Barry, you loved Hulk's WCW theme. Well, you also loved that undisputed title, so I'm not sure about you. I'm just kidding. Lots of people loved both, dude. You are definitely not alone. Yeah, Booker T's as well. Booker T's theme stayed the same, but by then you got to remember WWE purchased WCW, so it's gray area there. Once they bought it, they can do whatever they want with the music because they own it now. But, when you actually have two competing, separately owned companies doing it, that's when it's really interesting to me. Christy, Hemi, and Trish on WrestleMania 1. You're right, or 21 as well, Ben. You're right. I like that outfit Trish had. It was the one with the suspenders and stuff, right? That looked really good. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, and Ray and Eddie, I believe, opened the show at Mania 21, so I'm looking forward to that, man. I remember watching it that night on pay-per-view. I'm sure I'll provide lots of memories for you guys tomorrow. And if you are here in the chat right now and you haven't smashed the thumbs up button yet, please do that. I'd appreciate it. This past week on Raw was an okay show because it was kind of centered around the big Steve Austin news. Now, I reviewed Raw on Monday. If you want to check that out, you can. We talked about Vader's Hall of Fame induction as well. A couple of mic drops on the channel right now, too, if you want to check them out. When I talked about Vader's induction, I ranted a little bit on the future of the Hall of Fame and some of my issues with it. So there's a video on my channel up right now about that. And I've also pitched a WrestleMania finish between Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. I think Bianca should squash Becky Lynch as quickly as Becky squashed her at SummerSlam after Becky cuts off Bianca's hair in a couple of weeks, maybe even this Monday on Raw, because Becky got whipped with the hair, then she got her voice box crushed. She needs some revenge. Bianca's wearing shirts now that says "Don't touch my hair," so I think a little snip snip with Brutus Beefcake's hedge clipping shears needs to happen. Bianca then is a mad woman. She's pissed. She's out for blood. She storms to the ring at WrestleMania and wipes out Becky in a matter of seconds, wins the title. That could be evidence why both women's matches are on the same night, is because unless they're going to hotshot some angle to unify the women's titles for some reason, because they are supposedly unifying the men's, even though it doesn't sound like they are. That other than that, maybe they're putting both women's matches on the same night. That way fans won't feel ripped off if they get like a 5-second match for a title, because that's the way fans are. They always feel, they always got something to complain about or have some reason to make themselves disappointed. So if you put Becky and Bianca on night 2 and you did a quick finish like that, fans might flip out. So I kind of laid all that out in a couple of mic drops on the channel now if you want to check them out. RK Bro picked up the tag team titles as well on Monday Night Raw in a fun match that went like 45 minutes. That was great stuff. And then, of course, at the end of the night, Kevin Owens lays out a challenge to Stone Cold Steve Austin to come to WrestleMania to be on the Kevin Owens show. So all this time, we've been hearing rumors about Austin getting in the ring to actually wrestle. Turns out it's not going to be that. And you know what? I'm fine with it, because I didn't want to think about another guy coming back and potentially tarnishing his legacy, even if it is for a major payday. And once they kind of framed it in a Kevin Owens show, and Owens and Seth lost the match, and Owens is trying to figure out a way to get into WrestleMania, and then it comes to him and he says, "I challenge you, Austin, to come out to the KO show," but not before he runs down a whole bunch of other Texas legends first, like JBL, like Booker T, like Shawn Michaels. Runs through all these guys, say, none of these guys, are important enough for me. I'm challenging Austin to be on the KO show. So it's like half challenge to a fight, half invitation to be on his show. And the show basically went off the air like that. I was expecting to actually physically see Austin, but instead the show goes off the air with them showing a potential WrestleMania graphic for Austin being on the Kevin Owens show. The very next morning, Tuesday morning, butt crack of dawn, Austin releases a video on social media that he obviously already taped days earlier. I kind of wish they would have waited a little while or waited an extra day to do this so it felt a little more realistic and authentic. But he's out in his truck or his four-wheeler and he's driving out in the middle of nowhere, and he just cuts this awesome Stone Cold promo right out in the middle of butt-fuck nowhere. Just nothing but beautiful mountains behind him, and he talks about Owens and he's going to whip his ass. And 19 years ago when I retired, you know, and I got rock bottom and beat by The Rock, and talked about all of that. He still has it. The dude can still cut a promo even in the desert. He just is so great, so awesome, so great to see Austin in that environment. It reminded me a little bit of Terry Funk. Terry Funk had a couple of promos like that back in the day where he would like drive up on an old pickup truck and get out with his cowboy hat and just scream and yell. He's just fantastic. So Austin basically accepts Kevin Owens' invitation to WrestleMania and basically implies that it is going to be some sort of a physical confrontation. So like I said, I actually am okay with this. I prefer this over this being a straight one-on-one match where Steve Austin is going to be under the microscope. You know, we're going to wonder about what kind of gear he's going to wear, how he's going to look physically. Everything is going to be dissected and picked apart, and that will go down in the record books as his final match, you know, instead of the one with The Rock. And Austin is a guy that cares very, very much about his legacy, and I appreciate that about him. I used to feel that way about Shawn Michaels too, because I was like, what a guy. He's finally a guy that actually retired, but is physically able to keep wrestling if he wanted to, and he stuck to his word. You know, Mick Foley, Roddy Piper, Ric Flair, countless other, Terry Funk, multiple times even have broken their retirements to come back because they just can't resist the urge. They got to satisfy that itch. It always comes back to them. They can't let it go. They can't drop it. They can't move on. Hogan has done the same thing. Nobody can really truly retire unless they are forced out of the ring, like somebody like Edge, who also came back. And the fact that Shawn stuck with his retirement for so long, and then right when you think it's too late for him to come back, he does with a shaved head in Saudi Arabia and arguably the worst match that has ever happened in wrestling history. That's what I think Austin wants to avoid, because Shawn Michaels went out about as well as you could go out. I always was real bitter towards Ric Flair. I thought he was an ingrate for the way he came back in TNA after WWE gave him that incredible send-off that made every single wrestling fan across the globe cry like a little bitch, the way he was sent off. I mean, if you're a wrestler, that's the type of send-off I'd want to have. The fact that he undid all of that, you know, for a payday. The ring is off, the watch is off, I'm getting in the ring. You ruined it, you know? And then Shawn Michaels did the same thing. I would have been heartbroken if Austin did that, especially if the match wasn't good. Now, he was in there with Owens. I would be supremely happy for Owens to get this opportunity. I still am. But I think as a fan, I will have a little bit more comfort knowing this isn't a real match. This is just Austin coming out for nostalgia to help boost ticket sales and really give the fans a fun, feel-good throwback moment with him hitting the stunner on Kevin Owens. I think Seth Rollins could also be involved in this if he is not going to be facing Cody, which may or may not be the plan for Seth. But if Seth has something else to do and Owens is taking on Austin by himself or interviewing Austin by himself, actually, well, regardless if Seth gets involved or not, the fact that Kevin Owens on Raw also called out all those other Texas legends, I kind of smell one of those segments like they did last time they were in Dallas. Didn't Shawn and Foley and Austin all come out in Dallas to beat up somebody? Who did they beat up? Like Heath Slater or something? Or whatever that was. So I kind of feel like it'll be something like that after Austin and Owens have their little brawl, because I'm sure it will feel like a real match. I think they will kind of have a several minute long brawl before Austin finally stuns Kevin Owens, pours beer on him or whatever, and celebrates. But I think it would be really cool to see some of these other Texas legends come out after Austin is done with Owens, like Booker T, or maybe like even JBL. I don't really want to see JBL. Fuck JBL. He's not even a babyface, really. So if JBL comes down and hits Owens with a clothesline from hell, then you can have Booker T come out and hit Owens with the scissor kick. Then you can have Shawn Michaels come out and hit Owens with a super kick while Booker T's spin-a-rooning in the ring and Austin's drinking beer. And then for the cherry on top, just a couple of nights after he's inducted into the Hall of Fame, keep rolling, starts playing. Out comes the American Badass down on his motorcycle, American flag fucking in tow, thin blue line gear on his chest or something stupid like that. Comes out there to the soft muffin music, down to the ring, gets in there, choke slams Kevin Owens. One final goodbye, one final last look at Mark Calloway, this time as the American Badass, which we kind of got in his match with AJ Styles a couple of years ago, but not really. And to have him come back, one final send-off, Austin, Taker, Shawn, Booker. Forget about JBL. Forget I even brought him up. Don't bring him out there. Just have those four. Stand over Kevin Owens' body and or Seth Rollins' body too, depending on what Seth winds up doing. I think that would be fun. That would be a feel-good WrestleMania moment for the fans. And that's what I would prefer sometimes the Legends doing, is something like that, something fun. It's 2 nights of WrestleMania, 2 back-to-back 4-hour shows. Having a segment like this isn't taking away from any talent. There are times where I think WWE does rely too heavily on stars from the past or legends to build up their card. Something like this, however, would not be that way. Something like this would be fun. Something like this would give the fans something fun to see with some of the stars, their favorite stars that they grew up with. But it would also be an incredible rub for Kevin Owens. You know, this is a big WrestleMania moment for him, even though he's probably going to get humiliated. I wouldn't care. If I was Kevin Owens, I would love to take a few stunners from Austin. It would be my honor. Pour beer all over my face. Stand on my face. Beat me senseless in front of everybody. I don't care. I will be just as giddy as a schoolgirl through the entire thing because I get to interact with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker in front of 100,000 people. That's awesome. So that should provide, I think, a really good segment, especially if they want to get real fun with it. So keep a lookout for Austin and Owens at WrestleMania. We will see what happens this Monday on Raw, if Austin is even there, if they do anything to further this. I'm sure we're going to hear from Kevin Owens, possibly even Seth Rollins. And Raw on Monday is in Jacksonville. So basically the way I'm going to do it, if Cody shows up on Monday, I'll be here for a review. If he does not, then I won't, because I don't think anything too crazy is going to happen on Monday Night Raw this week. But they are in Jacksonville, and if you are going to bring Cody in to do anything at WrestleMania, or you have some plans for him in place with Seth Rollins, you know, I kind of laid out the idea of Seth coming out at WrestleMania and saying, I don't have an opponent, and I call out anybody. And then Cody comes out and, you know, says, my dad be rolling over his grave. He loved you. He presented you with the inaugural NXT title, and he thought you were going to be the future of the business, and he'd be ashamed if he could see what you've turned into. So I'm here to shut you up. Ring the bell. Let's fight right now. Or they could bring him back early so they can do some segments on TV to help build up the match. So Jacksonville could be a hell of a place for Cody to show up on Monday. So there's been a lot of conflicting stories. We've heard reports of talks fizzling out between Cody and WWE. We've heard rumors of Cody potentially maybe going back to AEW. We've heard of plans in WWE internally with the creative team to come up with ideas and have a storyline in place for Cody in the event that he signs, but also have a contingency plan in the event that he doesn't. So we really just don't know when and or where Cody will show up in any company. And to me, that's fun. I don't really want to know. I want him to show up and hit me when I'm least expecting it. I don't care if it's on Dynamite, Rampage, SmackDown, or Raw. Don't give a fuck. Just want him to come and show up somewhere because it's going to be fun when he does. And if he does jump to WWE, to me, like I said, in my heart of hearts, my gut instinct tells me that is what he's going to do. I think Cody is a guy that, wants the spotlight, and he wants as much exposure for himself and Brandy and his name and brand as possible. And like WWE or not, regardless of their TV rating or how shitty their creative is or any of that stuff, you are going to get the most exposure in a wrestling company that's got a 60-year head start on the other one. It's just it's just a reality, the way it is. So if that is Cody's ultimate goal, to be as famous as possible, then yeah, WWE might be the place for him because WWE has so many connections throughout entertainment. You know, if Cody is looking to get into doing more stuff like he was doing on the Go Big show or, a reality show or maybe even getting into movies, WWE could be a good bridge there. And, maybe that's what his plans are. We don't know. But whenever Cody shows up, should be pretty exciting in my mind. Oh yeah, Aaron. The I should have said flaccid muffins. The flaccid muffins is what they're called. Oh yeah, League of Nations was who took the ass whipping from the Texas guys or from the Legends. Shawn, Mick, and Austin beat up Sheamus, Del Rio, Wade Barrett, and Rusev. Jesus, 3 beat up 4. I didn't even know it was that bad. I was thinking it was just a couple of jobbers. I'm sure that was. Oh yeah, I kind of remember that now. But man, League of Nations was a great faction, but WWE just can never figure out what to do with great talent in one spot. Oh yeah, tomorrow at WrestleMania 21, there's also the sumo match. I forgot all about that. So that will be the bathroom match. That's Big Show and Aki Bono or whatever. What the hell were they thinking? As great as that card was, to have that weirdness in the middle of it is very strange. Good to see you, Wilbert Reed. I'm looking forward to 21 tomorrow as well. Should be fun. Zane G, thank you for that $2. Word was Austin wasn't happy about the segment. What, on Raw? The one where Owens challenged him? Yeah, I don't blame him. I'm sure Austin wasn't happy about the segment. I think the whole fucking thing is lazy. I don't understand how. I just think there would have been better ways to get to Austin and Kevin Owens than the way they did it. It's extremely lazy. It's very Bruce and Vince-like to think that all you have to do is go out to the ring and shit on Texas. I'm from California. I've lived in California, North Carolina, and Michigan. You could shit on any of my towns, and I wouldn't give 2 fucks. Shit away. Don't care. It would never be enough to upset me. And considering Austin already does appear for WWE from time to time, why couldn't you just get him out there on TV? A special appearance by Stone Cold on a throwback edition of Raw, and then Owens comes out and confronts him and maybe even attacks him or does something to spark this WrestleMania stuff. Or you put Owens on the Broken Skull Sessions. I would love to see Kevin Owens as a guest on Broken Skull Sessions. Anybody know when that Bubba Dudley one comes out? It might already be. I haven't watched it. If it's out, I'll check it out. Maybe even tonight. But that would have been a better way to do it. You could have shot an angle right there. You could have had Owens on the podcast, but then maybe at the they could have. I know they like try to keep that kayfabe free and try to keep it as legit as possible, but it might have been a good spot to run the angle, especially if you did the entire podcast and then he just saved it to the end. And then maybe Austin hits Owens with some of those rapid fire questions or just to wrap up the show and he says something that Owens takes exception of and he can be like, why did you say that? Why would you think I'm not like that, Steve? We just had this 2-hour conversation. Why would you say that to me? I think you might be jealous of me or I don't know, just start going in on each other. And Austin's like, oh, hold on, man. That's not what I'm saying. What the fuck? And then, maybe he picks up one of those Stone Cold IPAs and throws at him. I don't know. You could do some sort of an argument on Broken Skull Sessions where Owens just storms off. And then maybe Austin shows up to Raw saying, I want an apology or what? I don't know. There's so many different things I think you could have done to get this segment booked than the way they did it. So Austin, if he wasn't happy about the segment, he has every reason not to be, but he also should know who he's dealing with here. This is WWE where most of what they do doesn't make a dick bit of sense anymore. So I'm glad it's not going to be a match. I'm glad that he's not going to come out there in his gear, his knee braces and his tights and his vest and his boots. Just come out there in a t-shirt and some jorts and whoop some ass. That's all we need out of Austin. That's all I need anyway. We should at least touch on NXT this week. Oh, by the way, Raw this week, 1.78 million and a 0.45 share. So not a terrible rating for Raw, considering where the ratings have been over the past few months. But it's also WrestleMania season. So if you're not pulling in decent number Raws, something's seriously wrong with your asses. But NXT the following night saw a huge title change. Now, we saw Braun Breaker on Raw. He made his Raw debut in a tag team match against the Dirty Dogs, teaming up with Ciampa, and it was going to be a triple threat, Dolph, Ciampa, and Braun on Tuesday for the title. I think they were calling it NXT Roadblock. Now, I had said on the Raw review, I said, because people are like, oh, is this a debut for Braun Breaker? I'm like, no, probably not. I think this is the new way WWE is going to do things now. If they want to get a look at a talent, they're going to put them on. They might just bring them to Raw and see how they look. We were seeing that before with Main Event when they would bring Karrion Kross up on May, but that was all done in the Thunderdome before things really got going, I think, wasn't it? Before the fans really came back. But now, and that was still in the black and gold era, but now that NXT has kind of changed, I think you're going to see a lot of different a lot of differences in the pace of roster call-ups. There's really going to be no rule to how long somebody needs to be at the PC or anything like that. If they think you're physically ready in terms of what you can do in the ring and Vince likes you enough, I think they're going to bring you to the main roster right away, in my mind. And they might as well, because it's pointless to leave them down there in NXT to develop themselves a legacy, a character, and a run, only to bring them to the main roster and change everything up. How long has Pete Dunne been in the company? They brought him in last night as Butch and try to pretend that nobody remembers who the fuck Pete Dunne is. Ridge Holland and Sheamus making it sound like there's some dude they grew up with. I'm like, he's Pete Dunne. Jesus, man. Wasn't Pat McAfee is on the commentary team. Wasn't he in a War Games match against Pete Dunne? He's just got to pretend that he's never seen this guy before. It's just ridiculous. So I don't think there needs to be any rule of, he's being brought up too early or this or that. So in terms of what we saw on Monday, I don't know if that was a main roster call-up or not. Like, if we're going to see Braun Breaker on Raw this Monday, like Vince just wants him now, so they took the title off of him, or if they're setting him up to potentially win it back on WrestleMania weekend. There have been some rumors about the Steiner brothers going into the Hall of Fame. So if Braun Breaker is there to be a part of that induction, that could tie in nicely to him winning the title or being a big part of TakeOver. Or, he could be on the main roster now. I'm really happy for Dolph. I don't know why anybody would have a problem with this. Good for Dolph. Let him go down there and work in NXT for a while. He's a veteran. He's been there forever. He's 41 years old. And what's the difference? He can probably offer a lot to some of the young talent there, and he's going to give you some great main event matches for the title and, set up and pretty much put over the next guy they have in mind there for their next champion. So it just depends on what their plans are. We'll keep our eye on it. Like we said, it could be Breaker just winning the belt back, or, maybe he's going to be on Raw or SmackDown sooner rather than later, along with Gabe Stevenson and who else? Somebody else is coming to the roster very, very soon. So we'll see what goes on in the future with Breaker. But as of right now, Dolph Ziggler is your current NXT champion. It's weird, but at the same time, it's fine. I don't care. And I haven't watched much of NXT anyway since the switch over to the multicolored nonsense. So I just hope everything is going well there. It's such a sad situation that the black and gold is so unbelievably dead. Cannot believe what they've done to it. We did touch already a little bit on Dynamite this past week. I thought this was great. I think AEW is better at doing the Raw after WrestleManias than WWE is. Because so far, since they've been on pay-per-view, every Dynamite following the pay-per-view has always been pretty solid. And this week was crazy. We had a major debut, we had a major heel turn, and we had a major title change. All this stuff went down. Now, Dynamite did not break 1 million. They came in at 945K, 0.40 in the share. Not the greatest rating, but at least it ain't, too much lower than that. And we already talked all about the Jeff Hardy debut and how cool that was. We also saw the heel turn of Jericho, which we kind of smelled. He came out there and set all this up and wound up turning on Santana and Ortiz and wound up teaming up. Well, the whole thing was the handshake with Eddie Kingston and whatnot, and that's when the attacks started happening, and that's when 2.0 and Daniel Garcia came out and joined, helped Jericho beat up Proud and Powerful and Eddie Kingston, and Jericho has a new faction. The Inner Circle is completely dead. By the way, Jake Hager did run out there as well and stayed aligned with Chris Jericho, so Jericho and Hager are still together, and they have formed the JAS, the Jericho Appreciation Society. I was fine with everything I was seeing up until the words Jericho Appreciation Society came out of Jericho's mouth. I think Jericho has a lot of great ideas, and I think Jericho has a lot of fucking dumb ideas. I think the Mimosa Mayhem match was dumb, and I think Jericho Appreciation Society is very dumb. I think GTFOA or GFH, or what the fuck does he say? Get the fuck out of here, GFO? Whatever that shit is he's trying to get over, that's stupid too. And I preferred the Inner Circle faction name over Jericho Appreciation Society. So this is going to be all about Jericho. He's going to be that self-centered heel that's going to want the attention, and he's going to want to surround himself with guys that are going to feed his ego after a clean submission loss like he had at Revolution to Eddie Kingston. So I guess that's the whole point of the angle. But man, it seemed like the Inner Circle went through way tougher times prior to this breakup, the feud with the Pinnacle and even the Elite and some of the stuff that they went through, they survived all of that only to break up now, which is really weird. And Sammy Guevara, we don't really even know where he stands. He wasn't any part of this segment here because he was in the main event to defend his title against Scorpio Sky later, and there was no sign of Jericho or the Appreciation Society in that. So Sammy could be on his own now, now that the Inner Circle is officially disbanded. So Jericho turned heel, and I liked that. And I also like the fact that he surrounded himself with more young guys. Here we go again with Jericho. This is what I think is so cool about Jericho, MJF, Danielson, and even Moxley to a degree. When they came in, they've been working and giving rub to lots of young people and young stars, whether it be as opponents or partners. And we've seen Danielson work with everybody, like Daniel Garcia and a lot of the youngsters. And Punk did the same thing, and a lot of fans are, why are they working with them? I'm like, to give them a rub. Don't you think that's so cool? 20 years from now, Daniel Garcia is now a 3-time world champion. He's going to look back to his matches with Danielson and Punk when he first got started on TV, on a big stage, and how much that helped him and how much he credits his success to those learning experiences. This is the stuff that you have to go through as a wrestler. AEW seems to understand this. AEW seems to be really focused and motivated in growing the wrestling business and getting everybody over, making sure everybody is elevated as much as possible. You can't elevate every single person, obviously. Some people are going to be forgotten about here and there. So if you have a guy that hasn't been on TV in 3 months or whatever, it's the way it goes sometimes. But in terms of their overall philosophy, it seems like the goal is to get as many people elevated as possible. Call me crazy. Isn't that kind of what we want to see as wrestling fans? I think so. So I believe that this type of philosophy is going to help when it comes to building stars that you're going to see after all these other guys are retiring. So Jericho, even though the name of his faction is ridiculous, I like the fact that he surrounded himself with more young people to give them the exposure and the rub. And man, you talk about landing on your feet. Everrise getting let go from WWE in NXT was the best thing that's ever happened to him. Now they're in a faction with Jericho. That's awesome. And then in the main event, of course, we saw Scorpio Sky win the TNT title from Sammy Guevara, where Sammy Guevara had no help out there from Jericho or anybody else, and he was kind of outmanned there, and Scorpio wound up winning the title, which I think is great. We kind of called that. We felt like that was going to happen because Wardlow has got a championship match coming up next week as well. We're going to preview this week's Rampage in a minute, and Wardlow cut a really good promo on Dynamite where you kind of, and I said it in the chat, I said to the young people in the chat, I said, can you now see the difference between, a WWE promo and a pro wrestling promo? Because, Wardlow, you can appreciate what a wrestler has to say if they actually have something to say. And it's not so generic sounding. If this was WWE, Wardlow would have been carrying that big fucking brass ring thing with him. And then he would just be in the ring saying, I won this brass ring in the ladder match at AEW Revolution. And next week, you're going to be looking at your new TNT champion. He would just basically say a whole lot of nothing. He would say a very generic, scripted promo about how he's going to win the title. But instead, he came out and he just talked about the situation, talked about his history with Max, why he did what he did, the fact that he wants nothing else to do with Max, that he's going to move on and he's going to make it about himself now. And he kept it short. It wasn't even a drawn-out promo. It wasn't over dramatic. The simplicity that has always been in wrestling of getting over in terms of like being yourself, just cranking up the volume a bit. That's all it takes. Wrestling fans just need to connect with you. They need to relate to you. They need to understand what you're saying. And when you're talking like an idiot, when you're talking so animated and you're just saying these long drawn out sentences, I completely tune WWE promos out. I literally don't listen to them because nothing is ever said. Where Wardlow, he had my complete attention. Because I was like, yeah, I kind of want to hear what he has to say about this. So this week, Wardlow is going to be facing Scorpio Sky for the title. And since we saw no MJF on Dynamite this past week, a lot of people are expecting MJF to cost Wardlow that title to allow Scorpio to have some kind of a decent run with the TNT title. And I feel like that's the way it's going to go as well. So this coming week on Dynamite, get a load of this card. Danielson and Mox, I believe, are going to be in a match against somebody. We also have Hangman Page and Jurassic Express taking on Adam Cole and Redragon in a 6-man tag. We have Scorpio defending the TNT title against Wardlow. And in what I am hoping is the main event, Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa in a cage for the AEW Women's title, right in Thunder Rosa's hometown. On Rampage last night, we saw Britt and Rebel get involved in Jamie Hayter's match. So all of this outside interference that has played such a role in so many of these matches will hopefully be neutralized on Wednesday, and that will be your full circle moment, nearly 1 year to the day after the Lights Out match on St. Patrick's Day last year. Rosa finally getting her moment, winning the title in the main event of a show with the crowd going nuts in her hometown, to me is such a much better blow-off than her winning it second to last match at Revolution when the fans were burnt out after MJF and CM Punk, and we had a big main event coming up, and it just didn't feel right. But when Thunder Rosa didn't win, the fans flipped out and thought AEW made some terrible booking decision. I'm like, no, they made the right one. I picked Britt Baker to retain because I think that they need to trade victories. Rosa won the first one. Britt wins the next one. Rosa wins the blow-off. It's fucking Wrestling Angle 101. The fact that so many fans had trouble grasping this blew my mind. But yeah, a lot of unhappy people for no fucking reason at all. Just be patient. Wait till Wednesday. You're going to be happy. Last night's Rampage was pretty fun. Darby Allin opened up the show against Mark Quinn. Crazy 450 splash from Mark Quinn off the top rope to the floor early on in the match that almost made my heart sink after what we saw happen to Big E earlier on. Darby wound up winning with the armbar, tapping out Mark Quinn. After the match, AFO, Andrade family office, come out to the ramp, but then the Hardy Boys music hits, and Matt and Jeff donned in their full-on Hardy Boys 2001 gear come out and kind of even up the odds a little bit, and it was just kind of cool to see Matt and Jeff together with that music playing in another promotion. Eerie. Can't wait to see them get in the ring and mix it up with the Bucks, because we've never really gotten that on American TV. Hardys and Bucks have had some matches. I know at least one, possibly more than that, but we've never really got to see it on cable before. So if that winds up happening, that should be awesome, because, you know, that's the equivalent of, that's the tag team version of Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels. That's the tag team version of Dynamite Kid versus Chris Benoit. You know, they really patterned each other after the Hardys. And that should be a fun match when we finally get to see that on television or pay-per-view, and we will. We had a Dan Lambert and Scorpio Sky promo with a new belt. Scorpio also says, by the way, that he's going to be carrying, thank God, only one championship with him from now on. He took the other title and gifted it to Dan Lambert as a thank you for Lambert to put in his trophy case around all of his other MMA and UFC championships. And now Scorpio will be wearing the one belt, which is good, because I never really understood why there was two to begin with. So even in WWE, when they had the two IC titles and Razor won them, he didn't walk around with two IC titles. He just kept the one. So I never understood why Sammy was wearing them both, but happy to hear that Scorpio Sky will just be wearing one. And Scorpio was one of those early people that I had predicted to win the TNT title. I predicted him to be like the second champion. I thought he was going to be like the second guy to hold it. So I'm really happy that Scorpio Sky is a champion now in the company. You have two black wrestlers as champions now with Scorpio and Jade Cargill. I think that's great. Thunder Rosa is about to pick up the AEW women's title, at least hopefully on Wednesday. So, you know, one of the criticisms, you know, over the last year in AEW, among a lot of criticisms, has been the lack of diversity. Whole lot of white dudes here, you know, so it's nice to see with the signings of Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland and, you know, Jade Cargill having gold around her waist, Scorpio winning on Wednesday. Hopefully, you know, we're going to have some gold around the waist on Thunder Rosa this Wednesday. To see some of these diversity issues starting to improve is good. You know, when it comes to WWE saying they listen to the fans, bullshit. If anybody does, I think the other company does. Think about some of the criticisms that AEW has faced since they've started. They haven't fixed all of them, but take the women's division, which was weak as hell when it first started. It was a joke. It even made me laugh. I'm like, they got no business even having a women's championship with the talent they have there now. But it got better. You know, talent improved, more women came in. They added more people. They signed more people, Mercedes Martinez and Serena Deeb, and a lot of girls and a lot of women who can really, really work. And then Britt really evolved in a short amount of time. Once she got injured and turned heel, she really became that star. She's their cornerstone. She is their Charlotte. And the women's division has gotten so much better since its early days when it sucked. Remember how bad that Nightmare Collective angle sucked? They scrapped it. They got rid of it. They've done a lot of things like that to try to improve areas where the fans are, kind of pointing things out and saying, this sucks or that sucks or whatever. They fix it. So I think that when it comes to that stuff, they heard the audience and they made steps. I don't think anything was done on purpose. I don't think they purposely had all white champions or something like that. That wasn't their motivation or their drive. It worked out that way. Fans pointed it out. And even AEW was like, oh yeah, we should probably work on that. So I think, I'm appreciative as a fan that if you do have a company that, is doing things that the fans feel like they can do better, that they're not completely ignoring these criticisms. Where Bruce and Vince, not only will they ignore the criticisms, they will purposely do the opposite thing just to troll. Just to fuck with everybody. I swear to God, they changed Pete Dunne's name to Butch just to mess with us. Just because they like us upset. They like it. And AEW doesn't seem to have that type of attitude, that type of just shitty attitude where disappointing and annoying and upsetting the fans is a goal of theirs, which it really seems to be a goal in WWE. So I'm happy for Scorpio Sky. Not sure how long his run is going to last. Like I said, I think he will retain on Wednesday over Wardlow. I think MJF is going to play a big role in that unless MJF wants Wardlow to win the title so he can take it from him. But given the fact that Scorpio just won it on Wednesday, I'm not taking that belt off of him in 1 week, but it should be fun to see who does wind up taking off of him because it's probably going to be a babyface. So we will see. Also had a House of Black promo on Rampage last night where they kind of seemed to be hinting at a possible new foe. Not sure who they were talking about, but alluding to the fact that they know this person's deepest secrets. So I have no idea who that could be. Somebody mentioned possibly CM Punk or maybe even a Matter Jeff Hardy. I don't know. So we'll see where that goes. Jamie Hayter and Mercedes Martinez had a pretty fun, hard-hitting match as well, even with Hayter at the end taking a nasty belly to back from the middle rope. I think it just folded her up like an accordion. Jamie Hayter got the win after Britt Baker nailed Mercedes Martinez. Poor Mercedes had to deal with all of that outside interference from Baker and Rebel, telling the story of why Baker and Rosa are going to be surrounded by steel on Wednesday. And also, we had a Hikaru Shida promo where she basically says she ain't done with Serena Deeb and she wants her some more. So Shida is coming after Deeb. We had Keith Lee defeating QT Marshall. Big Bang Catastrophe for the win there. Nick Comoroto, Aaron Solo got in the ring as well to try to attack Keith Lee, but they got wiped out. Will Hobbs and Starks were on commentary along with Taz during this, and they ran out after Solo and Comoroto got taken out and knocked out Keith Lee. Spine buster from, I think Hobbs hit him with a spine buster or Lee hit him with a spine buster. I have spine buster written in my notes. Either way, Hobbs and Starks left Keith Lee laying, kind of chopped him down to size. So I'm sure Lee will be taking on one or both of these guys real soon on TV as soon as possible. And in the main event, we had the in-ring debut of Swerve Strickland defeating Tony Nese. Good match. Good to see Swerve in AEW. Good to see both of these guys there, even though we haven't seen a ton of Tony Nese. But Swerve won the match with the coup de grace for the win, or the top rope stomp, whatever it's called. Curious and excited to see what he does there and what kind of future he has. I think they do need to let him talk as much as possible. Swerve is excellent in the ring, but I think he can do more than that, than just, we saw that, as much in NXT and when he was in Hit Row and even his debut when he came out and signed his contract. He's got a good vibe to him. I really like kind of his aura and his energy, and I think he can speak well, and I think he should be allowed to talk and, kind of try to get over as much as possible with his personality too, because I think he can offer a lot. So Rampage was a pretty fun little show last night, and I think this Wednesday is going to be great for Dynamite. I can't wait to watch it with you guys. Should be a fun show. Last thing I want to get into here before knocking out the last few questions in the chat is last night's SmackDown, and I also want to run through the WrestleMania card. So we already talked all about the Big E stuff earlier on, so if you want to go back to the beginning of the podcast and listen to that, you can. Show opened up last night with Brock Lesnar cutting a promo. They have basically replayed that MSG angle 100 fucking times now, so we saw what happened with Roman Reigns taking out Brock, bloodying his face up and standing over him with 2 titles, and Brock said, boy, you know, not too many people draw first blood with Brock Lesnar and get to live to tell about it. And that's when Heyman shows up on the stage. He said that Roman Reigns is not here. And that's when Brock says, well, if Roman's not here, I'm just going to come get you. And he starts chasing, like physically chasing, running towards Paul Heyman. Heyman is losing his mind. He's running through the backstage area, screaming, stop him, stop him. And a few security guards get in Brock Lesnar's way, just enough to give Paul Heyman enough time to leap into a car that speeds away. So Heyman, you know, escapes with his life last night on SmackDown. That was pretty fun. And right after that was when we had the debut of Butch. Backstage segment with Sheamus and Ridge Holland, and they introduce a new guy to join the team, somebody that they've known all along, Butch. And then in comes Butch, and it's basically just Pete Dunne with a hat on that he kind of looks like he's dressed like Ridge Holland a little bit, and he's Butch now. And this company is so unbelievably out of touch, it makes my taint hurt. I can't understand the logic behind this at all, other than to troll the fans. I understand this want and need to market everything and own everything, but Pete Dunne has been Pete Dunne for so long. It would be one thing if Pete Dunne was Pete Dunne for 10 years on the indies and then they came in and changed his name. That's what we see all the time. We're used to that. But he's already let Pete Dunne be Pete Dunne, not only in NXT, but on the WWE main roster a couple of times. And now all of a sudden he's Butch. And I can't tell, like, are they really trying to pretend that Pete Dunne doesn't exist and this is some new guy? Because even commentary team kind of alluded to the fact that he used to be somebody else, but they weren't specific about it. And to me, that's even weirder because everything is under the same umbrella. You're promoting NXT shows on your main roster stuff. All the fans know who these guys are. I know NXT doesn't have as big of an audience as the main roster shows do, but you still have some sort of an idea who these guys are. You've seen them before, especially someone that's been around as long as Pete Dunne. Maybe WWE feels that they're pretty confident someone like Pete Dunne, when his contract is up, won't re-sign and will probably leave. So maybe they're choosing to change his name now so fans can forget about Pete Dunne. When he debuts, it'll soften the impact of somebody else jumping ship. I have no idea. Doesn't make any sense to me why you would name him Butch, of all things. Butch, where's Luke? He can only whack half the amount of bushes with that name. I don't understand why. Why even try to figure it out? Why try to understand it? It doesn't make any sense. Just what in the fuck of all fucks are they even thinking with this stuff? I understand maybe wanting to add a player to Sheamus and Ridge. I'm even fine with that. Why don't they just add Pete Dunne to Sheamus and Ridge? Why does he have to be Butch now? This company does things completely differently, and that's why I'm glad that we do have two wrestling companies that are vastly different. AEW really seems to care about the history of wrestling and wrestlers' specific histories and where they were, where they came from, the feuds they've had. Even CM Punk came out to his Ring of Honor music at Revolution. Do you think WWE would do anything like that? Fuck no. There was a time where I thought they were getting better with that, when they were signing a lot of really good independent names and guys that have made huge names for themselves outside of the company, like AJ Styles and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn even. When they started bringing these guys in, I'm like, wow, WWE actually seems like they care about wrestling again. And we were getting that great wrestling product on NXT 1.0 on the black and gold. And it seems now like AEW has taken that concept that Vince just completely murdered and destroyed all of Triple H's hard work. Seems like Tony Khan and AEW now are taking that idea, probably going to do something similar with Ring of Honor, and giving a lot of these stars a big stage on Dynamite to work on. And I think they might wind up doing all this better than WWE in the end, because WWE always has to worry about Vince McMahon fucking up the works. Where Triple H, I think, was doing just fine on his own, the way NXT Black and Gold was going. I was really happy with it. So the fact that everything is so different now and WWE is really seemed to be reverting back, because they've always been, that product that just made for kids and young people and silly and corny and stupid and cheesy. But after like 2010, it felt like they were trying to, with the NXT coming around, it felt like they were starting to get better with that. And then when they just gave up and threw in the towel and allowed AEW to take that section of the fan base, and then they can go back to being, the goofy, corny fucking circus that they are. I guess that's what they're doing here. And when you see somebody like Pete Dunne being renamed as Butch, that's what that tells me, is that they just don't give a shit about putting somebody on TV that fans are already familiar with and who they like to see. And now you're trying to get this guy all over again completely. Keith Lee was just talking about this on Talk is Jericho when they wanted him to be Bearcat. He's like, can you tell me what you want me to be? You're not giving me a character. You're telling me what to say. You're giving me elements of my personality, but you're not telling me who this person is. I've been used to being Keith Lee for all these years. Now you're telling me to be somebody else, and you're not even really telling me what you want this person to be. I don't need any direction, because I know who I am and I know what my wrestling personality and style is. Now you're telling me to change it. So fine, you're going to have to give me some direction as to what exactly you're looking for here. And they weren't even able to give him any answers, because they don't fucking know. And now here you got Pete Dunne, who's been doing everything one way for so long. Now you're Butch. Now you have to be a character. And you have to start acting this way. Basically, you have to do the opposite of everything you've been taught to do up until now. And I just think that's ridiculous. When he gets in the ring, he can still be Pete Dunne, sort of, and he can break the fingers and have all of his trademark moves. But I'm not here to see Butch. I'm here to see Pete Dunne. So it's just the latest in the ridiculous name change list that we now have. And this one's probably one of the dumber ones. This one, I think in recent history, this one and Piper Niven, Dewdrop, are the two stupidest name changes I could ever imagine WWE doing. Makes no sense. I thought part of the point of NXT in a developmental system is to get the fans used to these guys and get them ready for prime time. Once they kind of, build up a reputation for themselves and the fans like them and know what to expect from them, that's when you put them on the main roster. So there's some familiarity there. But now you're changing them up completely. Nobody wants to see Butch. Nobody wants to see Dewdrop. Now you have to get them over completely from scratch all over again on their own when they were already halfway there. Karrion Kross, same thing. I thought that Karrion presentation with Scarlett and everything in NXT was money. They bring it to the main roster, strip it down, take Scarlett away, put a GIMP helmet on. 2 months later, released. This company. So that was a tag team match. That match was going to be taking place later on. It was going to be Sheamus and Ridge with Butch in the corner taking on Kofi and Big E. And of course, that's where Big E had his injury. We talked all about that in the beginning of the podcast. And then we did have a finish in that match too. I think the medical team worked on Big E while the match was happening. Kofi ate a brogue kick after Butch interfered, or Butch provided a distraction for Kofi. He was kind of on the top rope, and then Sheamus came up with a brogue kick, knocked him out, and got the win. But I'm sure everybody in that match was really struggling to get through it, knowing that Big E was on the outside of the ring receiving medical attention. The rest of SmackDown was a whole bunch of fucking nothing, man. We had that big Drew McIntyre 4-on-1 segment where he overcame Baron Corbin and Madcap and Jinder and Shanky. And Drew and Baron Corbin, of course, are meeting one-on-one at WrestleMania. We also had Ronda Rousey in what I like to call a BAF promo, boring as fuck promo, gave less than a shit about anything she said. Charlotte Flair came out to talk a little bit of smack as well, and we wouldn't be done seeing those ladies on this show either. Naomi and Sasha Banks defeated Shayna Baszler and Natalya. Decent little tag match there. Sasha hit Natty with that code breaker type move she's using for the win. The Usos came out for a promo to brag about their 236 days as SmackDown Tag Team Champions. They claim there are no worthy opponents to face them at WrestleMania. So Nakamura and Rick Boogs come out to the ring. Usos propose a match one-on-one, Jay versus Boogs. If Boogs wins, then Nakamura and Boogs get a tag title shot at WrestleMania. Of course, Boogs got the win and defeated Jay, and that will be your tag team match for WrestleMania. I was kind of holding out a little bit of hope that we might do a tag unification. Obviously, that's not going to happen, and it's going to be Nakamura and Rick Boogs taking on the Usos for the titles at WrestleMania. In the main event, we had Ricochet defending his newly won Intercontinental title against the former champion Sami Zayn. Really good match here, a lot of fun. Prior to the match, though, Austin Theory comes down to the ring to fuck with Pat McAfee. Sits in on commentary at first, only to get up and then slap McAfee again. McAfee dives over the table, starts attacking Austin Theory, beats the hell out of him. Security comes down, pulls everybody apart, and McAfee is escorted from the building. And Michael Cole had to call the main event on his own, which was a clean victory for Ricochet, which was great. One with the 630. Did you guys catch that video on social media? I forget her name. What's the little ring announcer for SmackDown? I think that must be Ricochet's girlfriend. And they showed a video of her last week when she announced him as the new Intercontinental Champion. Just pure joy on her face. It was absolutely adorable. And I'm glad that Ricochet is champion now, and it looks like they might even give him a run. It's long overdue. So we'll see what he does at WrestleMania, if it'll be one-on-one or if it will be some multi-man match, possibly even ladder match for the IC title. Either way, though, it looks like Ricochet will, in fact, go into Mania as champion. That's awesome. And then the show ended with Ronda and Charlotte backstage, basically trying to recreate the brawl that they had 3 years ago with Becky, Ronda, and Charlotte, where they were kicking out cop car windows. And it was so good, so fun. But this was nowhere close to what they did 3 years ago. It was okay, but if the point was to try to do a callback to that, they failed miserably. Charlotte won the fight, though, got the better of Ronda, basically suplexed her and threw her around on a car a little bit and locked her in a submission and whatnot and left her kind of laying on the hood of the car. So Charlotte got the better of that exchange. I feel like Charlotte will be tapping out in the main event of WrestleMania Night 1 to Ronda Rousey, unless they do something crazy to change my mind. I'm just really not into Ronda Rousey's run. I liked her in her first run. This one feels super phoned in, and I just don't know what to think. So I think Ronda probably will win the title, and then hopefully that might set up with something with her and Becky again, or who knows. But it certainly won't be the last we see of Charlotte if she does drop the belt at WrestleMania. Speaking of WrestleMania, here's what we've got for the card. I don't have the night 1 and 2s written down here. I just have all the matches written down. So we will run through them. SmackDown tags on the line. Usos defending against Nakamura and Rick Boogs. Drew McIntyre against Happy Corbin. Pat McAfee against Austin Theory. Johnny Knoxville against Sami Zayn. Edge versus AJ Styles. Women's tag team titles on the line. Zelina and Carmella defending against Sasha and Naomi and Ripley and Liv Morgan. And it sounds like we could get one more team added to that before it's all said and done. We've got The Miz and Logan Paul taking on Rey and Dominic Mysterio. I sometimes forget about that match. We've got Stone Cold Steve Austin on the Kevin Owens Show. Becky Lynch defending the Raw Women's title against Bianca Belair. Ronda Rousey challenging Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's title, and in the main event, winner-take-all championship unification, even though apparently it's not going to be a unification, Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns. So we probably have room for a couple of more matches, 1 or 2 more, plus a Battle Royal, and the card should be nearly complete. And we'll see how all that goes starting this Monday if they are able to add anything else to it. So that is officially the bottom of my notes. So I got nothing else, at least in front of me, to talk about. So let me cruise over here to the chat, knock out any remaining super chats, see if there's any other questions, and then I got to get out of here because I have to go to work. Let me thank Zane G, I got that one already from you. Stone Cold 10X, appreciate that $5. I'm a Dolph fan, so I'm happy about him having an NXT title run. Me too, man. What's the difference? He can probably do a lot of good things down there and have some fun matches. And correct me if I'm wrong, has he won every single men's championship possible? He might not have won the 24/7 title, but I think he's won them all. IC, tag, SmackDown tag, Raw tag, IC, US, world title. I guess he's never really been WWE champion, but he's been world heavyweight champion. Feels like he's held everything except maybe one. I'm not sure. But good for Dolph. Padding that resume, man. Rodrigo Martinez, appreciate the $2 from you as well. Could WWE change Roderick Strong's name next? Yeah, definitely. If they bring him to the main roster, his name will probably just be Rocco or something. Or Brutus, who knows. Pancant, thank you for the $10. I appreciate that very much, and welcome. Not sure if I've seen your name in this chat before. Sting and Jeff Hardy actually tagged together to take on Bully and Robert Roode on Impact a year after the incident in 2012. Good to know. So they've probably been on terms even before Dynamite. Oh, yeah, I'm sure they've been on good terms because I'm sure Jeff did a lot of apologizing. I know when he came back, he had a lot of remorse. He apologized to the fans, and I'm sure he individually apologized to a lot of talent, especially Sting. So, yeah, I'm sure that's been water under the bridge for a long time, but they also haven't had to work together since then professionally. So after all these years, kind of seeing them in the ring together was just a cool sight, and you got to wonder if Sting gave Jeff a little come to Jesus meeting backstage. All right, I'm going to work with you, but none of that shit again, please. Yeah, he has not been Universal Champion either. So, yeah, I guess he hasn't won everything, but damn close. Could Cody be pulling a Brian Pillman and playing WWE for leverage? Possibly. I do think, maybe with the Brian Pillman stuff, you're probably referring to when Pillman kind of orchestrated his own release from WCW in order to go to WWE and then ultimately come back to WCW. So that could be what Cody's doing. I think Pillman intended to leave, though, WCW, and he went to ECW, then to WWE, and the plan was to always come back, but then the injury happened and then he died. But with Cody, it could be the same thing. Cody could be going back to WWE to try to build up his name, exposure, and just add more value to him. So when his WWE contract is up, he's got even more leveraging power for his next contract. So I think Cody is definitely trying to do something kind of odd, and I think that's cool because we need somebody pulling some weird shit in wrestling. I don't care how crazy he gets. I hope Cody, because he's been insinuating a few times that he's going to take us on a journey that's more bizarre than we could ever imagine. Hopefully he's not lying about that, and we actually see Cody do some crazy stuff. I'm excited. Will Jeff Hardy get another world title somewhere? Neon? Maybe. Part of me thinks no, especially in AEW where you got only one title. Maybe in WWE if he would have came back in and they could have given him a nostalgia run or something like that. But I don't know. I'm just happy he's back. I'm just happy he's there, and it will be fun to see him there. Oh, Diet Water watching WrestleMania 10. We watched that. That was the last watch-along we did before we took our 3 or 4 week break, was WrestleMania 10. So if you want to pause, go over to my watch-along playlist, pull up WrestleMania 10, and you can watch it with me. Diet Water, do it right now. We'll watch it together. Anyway, well, it is 35 past the hour. I got to get out of here now. I got to go back to work and all of that tonight. So hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday. Thank you very much for being here. Like I said, join us tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. We are going to watch WrestleMania 21 together. Down in the description, I have a link to that video up right now and ready for you. So go over there, click it, give it a preemptive like, and save it for tomorrow so we can watch WrestleMania 21 together. That show is loaded. Thanks again for being here.